Hey y'all, I'm James Wright and welcome to my shop. Cabinet scrapers are a lot of fun, but how in the world do they actually work? Let's take a look at these. All a cabinet scraper is a simple card scraper, but with a handle on it. This has two big bonuses. Number one, you're not going to wear out your thumbs flexing it all the time, and I've had big blisters on my thumb from doing it over and over again. Handles make it so much easier because you're not flexing it with your thumb. That's what the screws are for. You're using your whole hand to move the plane. Number two, a card scraper is a soulless tool. This has a soul, and that actually does a little bit of burnishing work on the wood. The cabinet scraper generally comes in three different varieties. There's the standard Stanley number 80, and you can get remakes of these dirt cheap. There's one from Kuntz you can buy on Amazon for almost nothing. And it works just as well as this because it's just a cast piece of metal with a couple screws in it, so you don't need anything special for this. Next, there's the 12 or the 112, and this one actually has an adjustable head so you can change the angle at which you're scraping. It also has a nice wooden handle, a little bit better foot and finish, and it's usually going to cost you 2 to 3, maybe 4 times as much as a number 80 will. Last, there's one that I don't have yet, and that's actually a scraper plane. It looks just like a plane, except for rather than the blade here, it's got a scraper blade in it. So it's not leaning back, it's actually leaning forward. Looks kind of weird. There's also one other weird difference between a card scraper and a cabinet scraper, is that a card scraper has bevels on it like a plane. The edge of this is at 45 degrees. It's not 90 degrees like a plane. It's actually beveled, which is kind of interesting. Why would it be that way? And to make it even harder to understand, it comes to a beveled point just like a plane, but that edge is not the cutting edge. It actually goes in the plane with the bevel facing up, but it going in that direction. So it's leaning forward when it's going. So just like a card scraper, you bend it and you push it forward at a leaning forward angle. With the cabinet scraper, the bevel is on the back and it's still pushing forward while leaning forward. That means this is the front of the 80. It pushes this way, not that way, which is really confusing because it has a bevel, and the bevel even goes on this side of the plane, but it still pushes that way. It's the exact same with the 12. It leans forward, and the bevel is still on this side of the plane, but it pushes that way. With the number 80, the angle is locked in. You can't change its angle at all, so you got to make sure your burr matches that particular angle. And for the most part, that works perfectly fine, especially with the bevel, which I'll get to sharpening that in a moment. But with the 12, if you want your bevel to be slightly different, well, you can adjust these and then change the angle that the card is scraping at. The other big difference between these two is this one has a screw in the back and basically treats it like a card scraper and bends it. Just like your thumbs would, this screw bends it. Whereas with a number 12, nothing bends it. That plate stays perfectly straight and flat. So you're getting a scrape the whole width of the iron if you want it. So with a card scraper, this surface is 90 degrees to this surface. So the edge of it looks like this. And eventually you're going to put the burnisher on there and you're going to burnish down the edge and you're going to get this hook that comes off of either side. So you've got these two hooks you can actually do the cutting work with. With a cabinet scraper, the top is actually at 45 degrees. And on this one, you just create one hook that comes off of this side. I do know a few people who sharpen their cabinet scraper just like this with the square edges, and it works perfectly fine. The big benefit to doing it with the 45 is it makes it easier to burnish. And if you're having a hard time getting the hook on it, this is going to make it easier. Having that 45 on there just makes it so simple. But the problem is you only have one edge to work with. When that one goes dull, you have to sharpen it. Whereas when this one goes dull, you can flip it around and use the other one. You got twice as much. Also, card scrapers tend to be a bit thinner. I like mine around 0.035, whereas cabinet scrapers go up. This one is 0.05, and this one is 0.065. When it comes time to sharpen the cabinet scraper, it's basically the exact same as a card scraper. You use a burnisher, and I've got a video on making this one, and I sell burnishers as well if you'd like to see that. If you know how to sharpen a card scraper, this is going to seem really similar, and this is going to be a lot easier. However, if you're having problems with a card scraper, then maybe you should check out a cabinet scraper because these are far easier to sharpen. When it comes to the actual sharpening, I like to do it freehand. Just makes it a little bit simpler, it's a little bit faster, a little bit easier. But if you want to see it with a jig, I'd say go take a look at Paul Sellers. He actually has a video making a jig for it. Really cool idea. And if you want to see it with a jig, go check that out. But if you want to see it freehand, well, let's do that. First thing we need to do is get rid of the old burr on it. There's a little bit of a burr still on there, not what we want. I'm just going to put in my finest stone, just a couple scrapes like that, move my fingers around, and I've gotten rid of the burr on that side. I'm going to hold it at around 45 degrees on this side. And one more on this side, and just like that, yep, we've gotten rid of that burr. There is no burr on this edge. If you have any nicks or cuts in the edge, it's fastest to come in with a file, and you can remove those. But I find that actually just using the coarsest stone is just as fast or just as easy, especially if the nicks aren't very deep. Now, if they're pretty deep, then go at it with a file. I'm going to treat this 45 degree just like a regular plane iron. We're going to put it on here at around 45 degrees. I don't specifically do anything to make sure I'm exactly dead on 45 degrees. I don't find that to be terribly useful one way or the other. I'm just going to go and I'm actually going to be moving my finger along it. You'll see my middle finger moving back and forth as I'm doing this, trying to keep the pressure in different places. Doesn't take much at all. And I can see I've got even scratches all the way across, and I've got a tiny, tiny burr coming up on here. We're going to move over onto this one and do the same thing over here. And then onto the final. And now I've got a really nice polish on here. I've got a tiny, tiny burr over here, and that's just about what we want. I don't want anything massive on there yet. There's what we're looking for. We basically just have a sharpened edge, but I'm not going to take it over to the strop. With a card scraper, I usually put the corner into the bench, and I just sharpen it straight on there. This one's a little bit small. I can still do it, but I find it being smaller, I'm running into my knuckles more. So I usually put it into the vise. I'm going to start with the card scraper at 45 degrees. I'm just going to go back and forth, and you're going to notice the edge of it starts to get a little shiny. It's just kind of polishing up a little bit. And after a few strokes of going at 45 degrees, I'm just going to lower the angle a little bit. Not much. I'll end up at something around there. Not looking for anything special, just right there. And now I can feel I've got a hook on there. The other nice thing about the 45 degree bevel burr is it tends to be a little bit more durable. I find I get more life out of this than I will out of a simple card scraper. I haven't ever scientifically tested that, but I feel like it actually gives me a little bit more life. Then, with the card scraper flat on the bench, I'm going to put a little bit of pressure down here. I'm going to slide it down in that slot, and I'm going to go until it touches the wood. I want it to sit flat on the bench. Give these a little bit of a tweak up. Don't have to tighten them down crazy, just finger tight's all they need. And now we're ready to practice. The back of this, we're just going to turn it until it touches the steel, and it should just be touching. It's not grabbing anything yet. The edge is just scratching on the surface. I'm going to take this and give it just a quarter tweak more, and then now we're grabbing. You have to have a little bit of downforce on it. So just like with a card scraper, getting nice, happy curls. And this is leaving me with a really nice surface. And also you can see these curls aren't that wide. I'm only hitting a spot about an inch wide in the middle. If I want a little bit more, I can tweak it up a little bit more. And now I'm taking a little heavier, deeper cut. If I want it to cover a wider angle, I'm going to loosen it up a little bit. And rather than just having it touch the wood, I'm just going to give it a little bit of a push down in, and then tighten up these two. And now I can get a little wider shaving on here. And the fun part is, here, I'm actually planing against the grain, and I'm still getting these really nice fluffy curls, giving you a really nice clean surface, almost ready for finish. Now with the number 12, I'm going to do things a little bit different. First thing I'm going to do is take this screw, and I'm going to run it back, give myself a little bit of leeway here. Then I'm going to push the head forward, make it lean down, put this in with the bevel facing back towards the handle, and the burr facing forward, slide it in and down until it touches the wood, and then we can clamp this in with the lever cap. And now back here, we can start to adjust this back to the angle, because right now it's not going to cut anything. But as I pull it back, it's going to be cutting in a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper. And after a couple turns, I'm almost getting what I want. It's still scratching just a little bit, so I'm going to do a little bit more, just another quarter turn on here. Tighten it back down with the second screw. And there we go. Happy scraper, pushing all the way along. I love those curls. That's just happiness. Generally, if I'm finishing a surface that's under 4 square feet and I want to use a scraper, I'm just going to use a card scraper. I find it to be a little faster and easier to just grab this and go. But if I'm doing more than about 4 square feet, this burns the thumbs and can really cause problems. Even with a magnet on the back, this is a lot of work. The simple number 80 does an amazing job. And I've done entire kitchen tables with this. For big flat surfaces, this is amazing. So do you need a 12 over an 80? Honestly, no. If I need a cabinet scraper, I'm grabbing my number 80. I find it to be a little simpler, a little easier. It just gets the work done, and I don't need anything more. Not to mention, this is far more affordable. And you can buy brand new ones, these that really don't cost that much and work just as well as the original Stanley 80. I know I rushed through this whole topic a little bit quickly, so if you have any questions, throw those in the comments. I read through all of them and I answer as many of them as I can. And if you want to see the jig, I'll leave a link to other videos, the one from Paul Sellers and other sharpenings I've done down in the description below. And really, thank you. Anytime you do put a comment down there, that helps out the channel. Just like hitting like, share, subscribe, thank you. Really, that means more than I can say. It helps me get in front of more people, helps the channel grow, and it really is a big boost to the channel. And if you want to take it even farther, there are a bunch of people over here. Those are all of the fantastic, wonderful, benevolent, and gracious people over on Patreon. They are the ones literally keeping us going. Without patrons, Wood by Wright wouldn't exist. We are completely sponsored by you, the viewer. So thank you for that. And if you do meet any of those in person, tell them thank you. If you'd like to find out more about that, there's links in the description, or click the little join button here on YouTube. We have special perks for both members and patrons. Thank you for that. I think that'll do it for now. And until next time, have a wonderful day. Whew, I think I made it through that one. This was a difficult one with the cabinet and card scraper. Cabinet card scrapers, oh my word. You could say this is one of those videos that easily could rub someone the wrong way.